Today we're reviewing Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion from Cephalofair Games. I'm Mark Maya. Welcome to Board Game Coffee.
Vincent, get back here this instant!
Thank you. Oh, I love you too. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Jaws of the Lion is a 1 to 4 player cooperative adventure game that can be played as a standalone adventure or as an expansion to its much larger brother, Gloomhaven. It's okay. No. It's okay. He's not gonna hurt you. Behave yourself. Okay, so first and foremost, what is Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion? Actually, before we get to that, let me tell you what it isn't. It isn't a legacy game. Sure, it has certain aspects of a legacy game. Stickers that modify your map, mystery boxes you're not allowed to open, but it doesn't have the destructive properties which you've come to expect from a legacy game. Well, outside of permanently adding stickers to your map, that is. Now you're probably wondering, is this an expansion to Gloomhaven? No. Yes. It could be, but not if you don't want it to be. Is it a game all unto its own? Yes, absolutely. Unless you want to use it as an expansion to Gloomhaven, then you could do that. That'd be...
For the love of God, just tell them you don't need Gloomhaven to play Jaws of the Lion.
You don't need Gloomhaven to play Jaws of the Lion. Okay, so here's the thing. For me, Jaws of the Lion serves two purposes. First and foremost, it's a standalone adventure with its own story, heroes, and locations, all set in the world of Gloomhaven, and designed for people with zero Gloomhaven experience. Yet, it contains enough of its predecessor's mechanics and adventuring to satisfy veterans of the tabletop classic. Or new classic. Newish classic. Britt, how old does a game have to be before it's considered a classic? If you're new to the hobby or just curious about Gloomhaven, you could just own this, play it, and be happy. It's a legitimate Gloomhaven experience with a much easier barrier to entry. An hour or two with this baby and boom, just like that, you're part of the conversation. Although this being a Gloomhaven conversation, you can't really talk about much, without spoiling it for somebody It also serves as a sort of finishing school for mercenaries looking to take the plunge into the big box adventure, but are put off by its complexity and scope. Because let's face it, everyone wants to play Gloomhaven, but this is a big scary box. I mean, just look at it. It's very intimidating. Very intimidated. You can go away now. Please. Jaws of the Lion takes that whole big box experience and distills it down to its core adventuring roots and presents it to you through a drip feed learning system that holds your hand through the first 5 scenarios. And I'm not ashamed to admit, I quite like the hand-holding. It made me feel safe and comforted that I wasn't being led out into the woods to fend for myself. Because nothing gives me more anxiety than being thrown into a new situation ill-equipped.
No, God. Don't leave me out here. I'll never survive. Now, a stick. What am I supposed to do with a stick? I don't know how to use a stick. Oh, God. What is that? Here, doggy. Good doggy. Good boy. You want to play fetch? Yeah, here. Oh, God. Oh, God.
I fell in love with the whole Jaws of the Lion tutorial system right away. Although it's not perfect. There was one point in the tutorial where it asked me to grab all 20 monster modifier cards. Although there is actually 30 monster modifier cards in the box that fit that very description. I mean, as a person with some Gloomhaven experience, I managed to figure it out. But if you are new to this series, how would you know what 20 to use? Answer: don't use the 10 with the purple stuff on it. These are your curse cards. You'll learn about these a little later in the tutorial. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn good. Jaws of the Lion does exactly what it set out to, which is make a more accessible Gloomhaven, which is easy to learn, and it does it really well. And by the time it lets you go, you'll be ready to take on the big guy himself. Okay, well, maybe it doesn't teach you everything you need to know. I mean, there are a few rules left out to make it a little more digestible. But it does walk you through the core mechanics, and the stuff left out is pretty minimal. So, by the time you're done playing this, all you gotta do is skim through this thing for any missing information, and then bada boom, bada bang, you're playing that. Well, that's enough about Gloomhaven. Let's get back to Gloomhaven. Now, the first thing you're going to notice when you open Jaws of the Lion is how the tutorial system is integrated into your entire experience, right from the moment you lift the lid off the box. This sheet here tells you what to expect and even walks you through a little box organization exercise. Hell, it even comes with little baggies. And once you're all sorted, the Book of Learning will tell you everything you need to know, and even prompt you when you need to take an action. The reason for the tutorial system, and the game as a whole really, is to give us a version of this which is accessible to the general public, while at the same time not alienating fans of the original with baby's first Gloomhaven.
Who's the cutest little board game? You are. Who's the cutest little Gloomhaven? Yes, you are. You're such a cute little
What are you
board
doing?
game. I thought I looked cute. I thought I would dress it up in a little...
I said this wasn't baby's first Gloomhaven. You're undermining the entire review. Quiet, you. All joking aside, there's a serious matter I'd like to address. Please, take a seat. There are those of you out there who like to call a game night totally unprepared to play a game you know nothing about. You sit at the table with your friends, crack open a brand new game, and learn the rules on the spot. Well, that's madness, and you're all monsters. Unless, that is, you plan on playing Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion. Why so hypocritical? Allow me to explain. You see, as a civilized host, I like to sit back with a rule book and learn a game to the extent where I can teach my guests without holding it out in front of me like an unprepared grade school student delivering his report on their latest field trip to the sausage factory. My Trip at the Sausage Factory by Mark Maya. Today at the sausage factory, we saw cows get mushed into small bits of meat chunks, and they get put in these little things, these machines, and then they come out like hot dogs. Thank you. But demeaning representation of people just trying to do their best to have a good time aside, I thought maybe I should let go of my predetermined notions of teaching etiquette and give this whole learning as a group thing a shot. Why? Because unlike most other rule books, this one was written with that very way of teaching in mind. So I did it, and as I sat there reading out loud, sorry, I just can't, it's just the thought of it. Anyways, I did it, and it worked. God damn it, it worked. Now this is still a 30-page rule book, but you don't read it all at once. That would be insane. No, you see, the way this rule book is designed, you read a little bit, then you do something, then you read a little bit more, maybe do something else, and then you play. Nice, bite-sized lessons that don't overwhelm. Don't get me wrong, if not for the purpose of this review, I would have definitely read this entire rulebook first, and then just run through the cliff notes with my fellow adventurers. But if you are so inclined to sit at the table and read the rules as a single unit, you can. Now, I do have a slight caveat to that last statement. Know your guests. If the friends you're inviting over to play aren't the type to sit patiently while being read to, you might want to take it on yourself to read the rules and learn how to play on your own, and simply use the rule book as a jumping off point to your own style of teaching. Speaking of style, let's take a closer look at the presentation and components. I love this book. I know this isn't the first game to use a book as a play area, but it's just so good. It's what keeps me coming back. Not that the game itself isn't good enough to do that on its own, but it just makes it all so easy. In the original Gloomhaven, you had a seemingly endless supply of cardboard bits that you used to build the levels for each scenario. And as flexible as that may be, it's a bit of a pain in the ass compared to this. Boom! New scenario. Locked and loaded. Well, loaded at the very least. You still need to put the bad guys on there in the odd little bit. But how freaking awesome is that? Now you can get more sessions in than ever. Want a new scenario? Bam! If this was the original Gloomhaven, which is still a great game by the way, you'd still be picking up pieces from the previous map by the time it takes me to completely build the next scenario in Jaws of the Lion. And it's that ease of setup that keeps me coming back. Personally, I'd like a book like this for all the games in the Gloomhaven series, old and new. I'm looking at you, Frosthaven.
So frosty.
Now, I know what you're thinking, but Mark, with only 2 pages to play on, your level layouts are so limited, like playing in a teeny tiny closet. Well, to that I say, wha-bam! Bigger level, more book, and still easy to set up. So good. To be honest, I would have preferred a fold-out system, kind of like a magazine centerfold rather than a second book. But not having a clue about component manufacturing or the process of mass printing, I'll just share that uninformed opinion here and leave it at that. Now in Gloomhaven, you had an entirely separate book that told you everything you needed to know about the scenario you were playing. Where in Jaws of the Lion has it readily available on the same page of the map you're playing on. No more fiddling around looking for the manual to double check the details of your objective, because it's all right there. Well, assuming you finished all the levels in the tutorials, that is, because until that point you'll still need this. Other than the book replacing the level tiles, everything else is pretty standard Gloomhaven fare. Heroes are represented by these little plastic miniatures, and monsters come in the form of cardboard cutouts. Sure, I'd prefer minis, I mean, who wouldn't? But more minis means more cost to us. And in no way do I think the lack of minis diminishes the experience. So I'm good with it. Bring on the cardboard. If you've played the original Gloomhaven, there are a few differences that you might want to be aware of before you jump in. Not that any of these are deal breakers, mind you, but I thought you should know. Let's do this rapid fire style. Road cards are gone, but we still have city cards. There are no powers in which you can summon minions. You can't modify individual ability cards, but based on the complexity of the original, I can understand why. Global achievements have been removed. There's no book of town records, no personal quests, no character retirement. Jaws offers less hours of play, but to be fair, Gloomhaven offers more hours of play than most people on the planet have to spare. It's also more affordable and easier to find since you can just pick it up at your local Target. Okay, now that might have sounded like a lot, but to be honest, I don't really miss any of it. I mean, I liked all that stuff in the original Gloomhaven, but for the smoother experience, it seems like a fair trade. This isn't a stripped down Gloomhaven, this is a streamlined Gloomhaven. Sans legacy. And all the stuff I loved about the original? Still here. The teamwork, the adventuring, the decision making, the evolution of your character from run-of-the-mill mercenary to absolute badass. And these things, these mystery boxes, taunting me with their mystery. What's inside? I don't know, but I want to. Oh, and the story. You know what I like about the story? It doesn't fall into the trap of fantasy storytelling. You know what I'm talking about, these overly verbose storylines with unwanted character soliloquies, and names of people and places that I can barely pronounce, let alone follow.
Ikomak of the Ikobe tribe stood upon the great Thorador, awaiting the summerfall of this night's eve, for his arch-nemesis, then Folderman Manscape.
You know what the name is of the early antagonist in Jaws of the Lion? Roland. And that's what I want in my fantasy games, a story that's not overly convoluted. Something easy to follow that doesn't overstay its welcome. Read a few passages out loud and you know what has to be done, and everyone at the table is on the same page. But you know what I'm not a fan of? This little circle arrowy thing that indicates that it's time to shuffle this card back into whatever deck it came from. And you know why it irks me? It's because I can never remember to do it. 2, 3, maybe even 4 turns go by when at some point I'm like, hey, look, there's got the little circle thingy. I should have shuffled that thing a long time ago, but I didn't. Does this mean I cheated? Did I make things harder on myself? Yes, on all counts. Oh, and this thing, the Element Infusion Board, remembering to manage this at the end of every turn is virtually impossible without the assistance of some superior AI. My suggestion to you, assign the task of managing this thing to somebody else at the table. So, other than taking their character's turn, this is their new job, their sole purpose in life. But you know what? They're gonna forget too. But at least this time, you have someone to blame. But, there's always a but. Because it is possible that the reason we're forgetting to manage all those things is because we're so enthralled in our game, in our adventure. Or maybe not, what do I know? Maybe it would be just as difficult to track if it was something bland and boring. But the thing is, damn it, it's not bland or boring. It's cool, man, and I dig it. Alright, I'm gonna be straight with you. I've only played Jaws of the Lion with 2 players. Me and Brittany. That's it. And you know what? I like it that way. As an adventuring couple, we've succeeded and failed many a mission, but we've done it together. It's been great. We experience the journey together. We bicker over treasuring, but when it matters most, we got each other's back. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this plays best at 2. I'm just saying as a couple, we enjoy it at 2. And I don't think adding 1 or 2 more players would diminish that experience at all. If anything, I think it would improve it. So who is Jaws of the Lion for? Well, there's a couple of answers for this. If you're a fan of the original Gloomhaven and have a group of friends or maybe even a spouse who up until now have been a little standoffish due to the intimidation factor, well, this is your chance. And I hate to break it to you, but if this doesn't get them into the series, nothing will. Who else is Jaws of the Lion for? It's for you, the person watching this video. The person who's always wanted to try Gloomhaven, but for one reason or another, hasn't. Maybe it was too expensive, or maybe you're not comfortable with long rule books or complicated mechanics. Or maybe, just maybe, it was sold out everywhere. Well, although I can't guarantee a solution to that last one, Jaws of the Lion does an excellent job at addressing everything else. So don't be intimidated. Just sit down, open her up, and enjoy the journey. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.